Welcome to the Trying to Be Better podcast with Joel and Steve.
All right, I did
recording in progress.
I did do a courtesy check. I think we're good. Everybody's okay?
Well, I mean, we have a guest. I don't want to unpack all my shit, but yeah, I think I'm okay.
Joel's easy on Sunday. He's comfortable on Sunday morning.
I'm moderately comfortable like Sunday morning.
With a touch of anxiety on the side.
Well, that's the coffee. I've realized to see that clearly, I need to see the fucking the chemicals I'm putting in my body and be like, well, you know, let's call it what it is. Is it panic or did you have 3 cups of coffee today?
Joel never has an extra cup of coffee at home. Full disclosure, I'm running on like 4 hours of interrupted sleep. So I'm like ready to go. I'm not sure where, but I've had the coffees and so just anything could happen. Just fair warning.
You've had a lot of excitement lately.
I've had some excitement. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Plus I had leg cramps in the night.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. Super exciting, sexy stuff.
That is sexy. Welcome to the Middle Age Podcast with Joel and Steve, where we talk about our chronic pain.
That's real, man. For like I literally, after like an hour plus of this, I finally got up and I went and stretched at like 3:30 this morning.
And that went, did that help?
Well, it was awful, but it did allow me to go back to sleep. It's not what I wanted to be doing at 3:30 in the morning.
Yoga with Adrienne every day, dude. Do it.
Oh, she's so great. I love Adrienne.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yep. Super helpful.
Like for fun and for free, you know.
Yeah. Right. She's got like these 30-day yoga things you can do. And you just, you know.
Oh, I'm well acquainted with Adrienne. We're like this. We're tight, me and Adrienne.
That's a weird hand gesture to make, Steve.
It was like, you know, we're close. Whatever. Yeah, not that one, dude. Joel's making obscene hand gestures. Not what I meant. Whatever.
Welcome to the Trying to Be Better with Joel and Steve podcast. It's Sunday morning.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it sure is. We have a special guest, but before we get to that guest, do we have anything else to discuss?
I don't know.
Follow us on Instagram at Trying to Be Better Podcast.
Yeah, email at ttbbpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. We
really would. I've been culling my social medias, and it's been fun to separate the wheat from the chaff.
I uninstalled all the apps from my phone again.
I deleted Facebook, or should I say Meta? Meta, not Meta. Meta.
All of that. It's
like Philip Morris rebranding to
Altria.
Fun sticks. I don't know. It's so great. It's so great.
It's great.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark Zuckerberg. Today's podcast is brought to you by Mark Zuckerberg and his digital innards.
In his benevolence.
He is
in his concern for a better society.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. We really appreciate it.
Right. We really appreciate it. All that you do. Yeah.
What else?
So I was going to say, Jack and I went out and saw The Dead a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, you did.
And so I don't want to get too dead weird, but there's this moment where these two guys were sitting next to me and they were kind of fine, you know, whatever, just regular looking dudes, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever, not there's a stereotypical deadhead, but you know, like, oh, we're all cool, you know.
On the spectrum of deadhead, they were like, 6 or 7.
They were in there, you know.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So anyway, the show was pretty straightforward. First set, rock and roll, whatever, some songs, you know, and the second set got kind of longer songs or whatever. I'm trying to be general for people that don't care about any of this, but the second the music took a turn for the weird, one guy turned to the other one and said, "What the fuck is this?" Like just like that, like what the fuck? And I was like, I'm not sure what just happened. Is this part of the acid test? I don't know.
Yeah, right.
It was so weird. Like, have you not listened to the Grateful Dead ever? And apparently because it was just like he was like personally insulted that it turned dissonant.
Yeah, these John Mayer songs are getting weird.
Kinda. I mean, that's almost what it felt like. But just the level of like straight up like immediate like animosity.
Yeah.
Like his experience was, what the fuck is this?
Well, to be compassionate towards that individual, it can get scary and nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And that is not always welcomed.
It wasn't like they were 12 minutes into a 37-minute playing in the band jam. It was literally like the tone changed and immediately. So at least he was, to his credit, he was paying attention.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like as soon as it went weird,
nice.
His level of like indignant.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
That just speaks to the whole idea that the dead can, and that music can tap into almost the amygdala lizard brain reaction to shit.
Right. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
It digs in deep, man. So anyway, speaking of the Grateful Dead, we have a guest today.
Yeah, we do.
Jack. Our guest today is our friend Jack Van Cleave. Say hi, Jack.
Hi, Jack.
Hi, Jack.
Hi, everybody.
I have known Jack since, well, you said last night or Friday, like 98. Is that right? I was thinking 97.
It was spring of 98.
Was it really? Okay, I guess that tracks.
Upstairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's right.
I knew that you guys had a history. I did not know that it went back that far.
Oh yeah, because our friend Chad had lived in the apartment that Jack moved into for a little while. So and I don't know if you know Chad or not, Joel. Anyway, whatever.
I think I do.
So I'll say Deadhead Chad.
Yep.
So anyway, yeah, and then Jack, and were you married at that time? I think you may have been.
Not till that fall,
but you were soon to be married because you and your soon to be wife at the time were newly pregnant.
Yep.
So young parents, and I was probably a year and a half clean, sober. Yeah, it would have been about that time. And you and I was like trying to do the thing, and you were white knuckling it.
Very much so.
Holding on for dear life.
But I don't know. Like, I think you said something about T-shirts the other night. I think what I remember, my perception is I remember hearing the album version of Throwing Stones being blasted from your apartment.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, okay, this is decent because, who are our new neighbors, Like, that's a good place to start.
Yeah. That would have been off the Arista Years Grateful Dead CD that I played a lot at the time.
Gotcha. Sure.
But I remember carrying something up the driveway, and I was wearing my Grateful Dead Hour T-shirt that I wish I still had.
Right.
And you came walking up and said, "Hey, nice shirt."
I can see that happening.
And that started my rule of anytime I move, I wear a Grateful Dead T-shirt.
Well, you might as well just throw it right out there.
Just so the neighbors know what's up.
Right. Right.
They know what they're getting into.
Right.
Yep.
That's right. And so that they know what's up on a larger scale.
And also I wear one every day anyway. So,
So it stands to reason that if you were moving, you probably would be wearing a Grateful Dead T-shirt.
Pretty much.
So we talked, I think, but we never really hung out, I don't think, much. A little bit.
I came up and hung out like on your couch, and you put on some music on the stereo and played it real loud a few times.
Yeah, we did a lot of that in that house.
We sat on the porch a few times, and you and Dylan and I went to Omaha for that art thing.
Oh, that's right. I still have a postcard about that.
Yeah.
Like it's right on my desk someplace. Yeah, we went and saw, what was that? It was concert posters from back in the day.
Yeah.
Down in the old market in Omaha.
Yeah.
At some art gallery.
We ate at the old Spaghetti Works.
What's that?
We ate dinner at the Spaghetti Works up there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
we did. All you can eat, baby. What is it? The Hot Naked?
Hot Naked. I just had real olfactory memories of the beer cheese. Their beer cheese.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they were like, correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, but they were like original, like San Francisco.
Yeah, it wasn't reprints or anything. They were.
Yeah, it's like the real deal, like the Can You Pass the Acid Test ones, and with all the,
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really.
Where was that exhibit at?
It was in Omaha, old market someplace. I don't remember.
Some brick building.
The postcard because it was great. I kind of forgot about that.
Building.
Yeah, it was a
I
brick
don't know.
building.
Is it some brick building? I don't know.
Yeah, that was right. I forgot all about that.
That's cool.
Well, so we hung out, and because we lived, it was on 25th and S in this old house that had been carved into a triplex and had this awesome front porch.
Mm-hmm.
Those were kind of cool apartments. Ours sucked because it was on the upper level and there was like two little old window air conditioners, so it was always 104 degrees in there. But whatever, it was, fit the bill at the time.
Yeah. But then, we didn't see each other after that for
a number of years.
5, 6 years, 7 years, something like that.
And so that was when you were kind of skulking around, kind of trying to sort of not.
Well,
how would you describe that time?
Yeah.
It was a better attempt at being sober than my first one, but
sure, that's
still
legit.
pretty half-assed.
Yeah, and half happy.
Oh,
I remember seeing you a couple
less
times.
than half happy.
And you did not look happy. And you were in a crew that I was like, yeah, that's not my scene.
Yeah.
So it was weird how like we didn't connect.
Yeah. But we saw each other and chatted.
Yeah, like whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like we didn't like start hanging out or anything.
Yeah.
I wonder if I was probably newly married around that time, which may have had something to do with it.
Right in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So early 2000s.
Yeah.
2004, 2005.
That's it. Because I had started,
around that.
Holly and I started seeing each other in late 2003, October-ish, right about now, actually. So that explains that.
Yeah.
I was enamored.
Yeah, you were Twitter-pated.
I was Twitter-pated. That's 100% correct, actually.
Yep. And I was in LA. I think
you were in LA.
Like 04, 05, and then I was back for a minute and then went back to LA. So our paths wouldn't have.
Me to West LA, Joel. Already know what we need to know.
Dude. That's a tale of two cities, though, for me, man. Like the first time was the best of times, or the worst of times. The second time was the best of times.
Yeah, that's legit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what'd you think? Jack, what'd you think of Steve when you first met him?
When I first met him,
or as you got to know him, I guess I should say.
Because there's a tale of three Steves there, probably.
Yeah, but pretty much it's always been the same. I mean, he's cool. He's kind of always on edge.
A little bit.
He's a little bit crazy when he wants to be, and he's a good resource for a lot of different things.
That's real. That's true.
That's nice.
Yeah,
that's what he's always been.
Really crazy when he wants to be, really kind and helpful when he wants to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like to think that the dials moved more towards the kind and helpful, because the crazy back then was a little less under my control.
Yeah.
You know what
live
I'm saying?
wire. I think the words live wire are applicable.
I can live with that. I can live with that. That's applicable. Well, yeah. And like, so then because I want to get to like my perception of Jack, just because I think it's flattering and interesting, but because then you didn't stay sober for a while.
I did not for a while.
Right. And then you came back. You called me. When was that? Has it been 7 years?
2014. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll say that was a good day for me. I was very glad to hear from you. Just because it's always nice to be able to help, but also my friend, so it's cool.
Yeah.
And that's not to belabor the point, but I do want to, I guess, acknowledge, like, for those of you listening who may or may not be interested in recovery or any of that kind of stuff, but we are fortunate enough, if the stars align and if people do the work, to watch people recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body that is often miraculous. And what I can say about Jack is that you're one of those guys. Like, you're still the same funny person that I knew back in 97 or whatever, but you're a completely different person. Your attitude and outlook upon life is 180 degrees of what it was. In fact, I think the Jack in 97 probably would have made fun of Jack today.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know what I'm saying? Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy. No way that happiness is genuine.
Because you're like doing things. Jack, you own a computer.
Oh, yeah.
And you know how to use it.
Right?
Like in 97, you were anti-computers. Fuck those things.
I was.
Yeah. Like, seriously. Like, that's how you were just anti-everything that wasn't Jack getting loaded, basically.
Yeah, I made up a lot of rules because of my fear of trying new things, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's real, man.
That pretty much sums it all up.
That
I
is
think that's-
great. It's like, I don't like this, so that's a rule now.
Well, yeah.
I have-
A guy I used to work with said there's a lot of rules to being Jack. And yeah,
What were some of those rules? Like, what were some of those rules that were rules at the time that have now fallen
just
away?
like when I'm driving a truck, no riders for any reason.
Okay,
Things like that. Fuck, I don't know. Just
I like that. Just like making a rule to justify your own isolation, or like
or my
That's
own
a rule
whatever fear, anxiety, discomfort.
yeah,
That's a rule.
That's
a rule now.
And then I stick with it because I'm stubborn like that.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, why do I have these stupid fucking rules? Now I got to deal with this, but like I got to keep dealing with it.
I didn't come here for rules, man, except for all of the thousands of them that I created.
Except for mine. Yes.
And now I got to obey these rules too. This is bullshit.
Emotionally painting yourself into a corner.
Okay.
And then being resentful about being painted in the corner.
Yeah.
I have this thing where one day at some point I was talking to somebody about microwaves. And I said, and like I just made up a thing. Yeah, when I start the microwave, I never put it on a multiple of 5 or 0.
So like 37 seconds.
So that became a rule. And still today, I'll put something in. I'm like, fuck, I got to do this. Okay, 34 seconds.
Because that guy may be spying on you from afar. Like, he said he never did that. So
it's just the way it goes. I don't know.
Have you ever looked into being the potential of maybe being a little OCD?
I mean, I'm just a regular guy.
Sure, clearly.
I'm just a regular guy with some rules. I just got some standards.
That's right. There's standards that other
None
people
of
are
them-
not living up to.
Well, none of them are important in any way.
They have no consequence on the world. But
so anyway, that's for those of you
Anyway.
who don't know Jack or whatever, who he's a new person. This is how this goes usually. But
Well, thank you,
the
Steve.
reason
That was nice.
we brought Jack here to toot his hooter a little bit, but we also Jack is Eduardo Busan that was on last week. Thank you, Eduardo, for being on and for listening. Jack and Eduardo, I think, are our first 2 regular listeners.
yes,
Jack, I think Jack mostly listens just so that he can argue with us.
I want the public to know. I want our listeners to know that Jack's responses to our whatever the shit we say on this podcast is prompt and pointed. And it's like, oh my God, he just listened. It's like that was the most. It's like probably when you're a band and you hear your song on the radio for the first time. When you get somebody texting you about something you just recorded, it's like, oh wow, somebody actually listened to that.
Listened. Well, it just shows. I think Jack has a lot of windshield time, and just shows how desperate he is for entertainment.
There you go.
I listen to a lot of podcasts. For work, I'm driving at least 20 hours a week.
Wow.
So I'm listening to podcasts, and this one is weird for me, especially like when it first started, because you're 2 guys that I talk to all the time.
Right.
We're on a text thread, we text with each other all the time.
Yeah.
So then I listen to you on a podcast, and the whole time I'm going, I want to respond to that. I want to reply. I need to jump in there with a joke or something, So then it's over, and I'm like, or even sometimes while I'm listening to it, I'm texting you guys like, that was a funny thing. Here's what I would have said, or whatever.
Well, I think
so
the best thing
takes those things. Here's the thing with the grievances, though. I do that. Steve takes that and turns around and goes, Jack has a problem with us.
I'm not necessarily bothered by it. It's kind of entertaining, but
But you were talking about my list of grievances, and I want
a list.
Grievances. I think this thing. It's an awesome podcast. I look forward to listening to it, and it keeps me entertained.
The best thing that you've ever sent us is your T-shirt idea, which is the logo on the front on the back that just says, "I'm only here for the outro music."
I'm just here for the outro music.
But I love that you may have made a rule that you have to listen to us yammer on for an hour before you get to the outro music. So thanks for, suffering through until you get to the outro.
The truth of the matter is it's all one track and it's never the same length. So you really kind of have to, I mean, you could fast forward until you found yourself somewhere in the music and then back up till it started, but that's a lot of work.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Oh, that's nice.
So if you did have some not grievances, but, and this is not about asking for praise. I will do that later. But, what are some response? Like I don't know, what would you say if you could have some semblance of reflection on our podcast, Jack? What would it be?
Well, the outro music was my idea in the first place.
That's true.
You're right.
Because I was listening to it and it would just end. And I'd be like, you got to have some outro music. Especially because you're talking about music right towards the end.
That has expanded and evolved over the last year.
So I mentioned that to Steve and he was like, oh yeah, I'll do that. So, you know, like, I don't know if there's anything like that I haven't already brought up to you.
That's true.
You know,
right.
But I mean, overall, I love it. You know, I mean, it's the kind of format that I usually go for in a podcast, just two guys talking to each other with maybe a topic or maybe the topic evolves in there somewhere. And then interesting guests once in a while, you know, like
that to me has been what's kept this interesting for me is that we never really, I mean, sometimes it's a lot like some of the music we like, which is that we might have something resembling a theme that we initially start talking about. But usually for me, the gold or the thing that's actually interesting or the one that makes the thing that I'll be, if I'm listening to the playback, I think, oh, fuck, that was great. You know, or that was genuinely moving. Is something completely unrelated and completely unexpected. You know, it's like you kind of, and if taken as a sound bite or out of context, wouldn't be. You know what I'm saying? Like I guess that it kind of has to be part of the flow.
Yeah,
and that's so I enjoy that about when it's just Joel and I, and when we have guests on, because it just gets, you know, sometimes it takes. And that's the thing that I've really appreciated about, well, Jack and Joel, you guys both turned me on to Mark Maron kind of simultaneously.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it both. Because Joel, you and I went and saw whatever, we were in Denver and we listened to Thinky Pain Coming Home.
Oh, yeah.
And then I started listening to WTF. And that was around the time Jack and I started hanging out again. And I mentioned, like, I listen to this WTF. You're like, oh, yeah, Mark Maron. Listen to him all the time.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's really the guy that kind of, that the concept of, I mean, it's a long form interview format, but he does that because it's kind of a lost art.
Yeah.
You know, and that to really get to the actual point or to have some nuance or a little bit more depth to the conversation, it takes time. And it may not, you're not going to get it out of a talking head 2-minute thing that's designed to spoon feed a public that's just looking for something else to be angry about, you know.
There's plenty of that out there.
There's plenty of that out there, yeah.
Right.
Or afraid of too.
That's something that I've been digging too, is the some podcasts of some comedians that outside of the Maron sort. Maron's got a real talent for it, but like Johnny Pemberton and Duncan Trussell have podcasts too now, and they let it be messy. And that's one thing when I'm listening, I'm like, if I ever get balled up or weirded out or like, oh my gosh, somebody is going to air actual grievances with the integrity or the professionalism of our conversation, it's like,
bring it.
I listen to like Duncan Trussell and Johnny Pemberton have a new one together called the Leather Rose.
Stop it.
Yeah, no, it's good. And like, it's just a total mess. And like, I so it's like, that is the beauty of it. So I'm glad, Jack, that you dig the mess, man. Yeah.
Well, and then at first when you guys, I think even from the first episode, you guys started talking about who you wanted to be guests. And Steve would throw my name out every once in a while. We got to get Jack on here. And I'm listening to all the guests you have, and I'm like, I don't have any expertise. I'm not, like, what would I even talk about? I know a little bit about a lot of things, but
well,
Jack of all trades, master of puns.
Right. Well, and that's why we have you on.
There you go.
Well, that's the thing, dude, and I think we should kind of get into it, is that one thing that whether people that have like sparkly careers that are interesting right now or not, that's the cool thing, is that people in your sphere, if you're out there listening, people in your sphere have interesting things to say and are doing and have an interesting perspective on the world, and to discount them because they're not, I don't know, popular or whatever, like, or not. It's not that I'm putting you in that, but you know what I mean? It's like everybody has interesting people in their lives. Get to know them, you know? Like, what makes Jack tick? Like, where, I don't even know this story. Like, where are you from?
Where am I from?
Yeah, like where did you grow up?
I heard this Friday. I'm checking out.
In
You guys
Lincoln.
talking-
Bye, Steve.
Okay.
I was born in North Platte, Nebraska, and then
Ooh.
when I was 3, we moved to Lincoln. So I've lived in Lincoln all my life.
Oh, no shit. I thought maybe you were from out of Nebraska. I don't know why.
I wonder where you thought I was from. Like
I feel like,
If I was going
I
to
don't
look
know.
at you, the screenshot, I'd say,
if
like,
you say Ohio, I'm fucking out of here.
no.
yeah, I almost did.
No, I was
I was
actually
like,
thinking like, I was thinking like,
Indiana,
I was thinking
Ohio,
like North Carolina for some
North
reason.
Carolina,
Yeah.
West Virginia.
Carolina
No.
Jack.
No. Nebraska, born and raised.
I think the thing that's been most interesting for me over the last year is meeting your parents, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Your parents are just a trip. They're delightful.
You had met them here and there before, but you actually spent a little time with them.
Yeah, just talking, not a lot, but a little bit here and there. Because Jack's parents are what you would, I guess you just call them hippies.
Pretty
Oh,
much.
nice.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But like your dad's trade was, correct me if I'm wrong. I want to see if I get this right. He spent a lot of most of his working years making like gold, like dental work,
Gold crowns.
gold
Wow.
crowns. Yeah,
That's
he
what
was
he
a
did.
craftsman doing that for a long time.
Yep.
But
Sitting
when
on
we
a
were
bench
helping-
with his little, what do you call that? Magnifying lens headband thing and
Oh yeah.
grinders and yep.
So they were hippies in a way, and I would consider you as a total fucking hippie.
Well, but
dirty.
Jack's, that's the thing is like Jack's dad's like Rec Room or Rumpus Room or whatever has like album covers on it, like Blues for Allah and
yeah.
you know, Emerson, Lake and Palmer and like those, I think it's ELP, but like, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
the really far out.
Yeah. I mean,
And, like,
Hendrix,
it's
Hendrix is his thing, but
Hendrix,
Okay.
all that stuff.
but like, so like like that's a thing. It's still a thing. And it's
Yeah.
like, I'm like, I know this room, you know?
Yeah.
Did you rebel against that? Did they turn you on to cool shit when you were a kid?
Yeah,
Because it sounds
I mean,
like they didn't. It sounds like you have a wide understanding of that sort of shit, but you didn't reject it. You accepted it.
oh yeah, I definitely accepted it. It's just what was around when I grew up, you know, like that's the music we played. When I remember looking through they'd let me pick out an 8-track to put in, you know,
Nice.
when I was real little. And like Supertramp Breakfast in America was one of my favorites.
Oh yeah.
But the Grateful Dead Terrapin Station, that was one I would always throw on.
Wow.
You know, and I was probably picking them based on the album covers at the time.
Right.
It's just what was around. And then when I was in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I got real into gangster rap.
Yes.
And I guess
Natural
that was my
progression.
rebellion because, you know, I remember
That was my rebellion too. And I remember that was like I heard somebody talk about it because punk was long dead really since at that point. But in the you know, early 90s, mid 90s, the most punk thing you could do is blast like NWA or Ice-T, and that pissed my dad right off. And if my dad listened to this, I know you remember that, Dad. It pissed him off, and it was like
Mission
I found it.
accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
Well, but the thing with my parents, it didn't piss them off because they
Nice.
understood. You know,
This was Jack.
they didn't
being
want to
rebellious.
listen to it, but they understood. And I
Yeah.
remember one time my dad saying, like, Grandma and Grandpa are coming over. You have to take down that picture of the black guy with a gun that says "Kill at Will," because I had that poster, the Ice Cube poster on my wall, and I was like, "I'm not going to take that down." And my dad's
Right.
like, "Whatever, fine, We'll
Fine.
just shut the door." But then, you know, like I got into 9th grade around then, and started seeing like the kids wearing the Grateful Dead T-shirts at school,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Oh, I know that. Like I listen to that stuff, you know."
Mhm. Mhm.
And hanging out with them, and they were into the music that I'd always listened to, and I was like, all right, these are my friends, So that's kind of how that happened. But my dad and I still, like, every time we see each other, we trade the same albums back and forth,
That's cool.
What are some of his staples then?
Well, Hendrix, he's a real big Hendrix guy. Jethro Tull.
Nice.
All the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Cream. All that early 70s, 70, 71, 72, rock and roll. That Spirit album that I always talk about, the 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus.
Yeah.
That was one that I always remembered. That was in the rotation.
I've never listened to that. I'll have to correct that.
I was given a Spirit record recently, and I would put it on, and I'm like, who the fuck are these? Like, I had no idea.
Where are they from? Is that a San Francisco thing?
They were LA freaks more than hippies.
Got it. Yeah.
Got it.
So
Plastic Fantastic.
Well, but not exact. I don't know. They're just weird. They're not really like anything else.
All right.
Yeah, but that album came out in like 71, I think.
Okay, so here's the thing. Do you guys ever listen to Big Star? Have you listened to those two albums or whatever?
Nope.
I have. I don't get real excited about it. It's fine. Okay.
Because on the like now playing things on the Big Star seems to have this rabid cult following that thinks that they were the greatest thing that almost was.
Yep.
And I started to listen to one of the records, and I'm like, I guess this is okay. And then I went and did something else.
I've always thought it would be one of those things that if I put the time into it, I'd really get to like it.
Yeah, that's probably where I went wrong there.
I feel the same way about Beefheart, Captain Beefheart. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. Yeah. I don't care. I don't have the space for that right now.
I understand. Dude, I'm going through that right now. I checked out Henry Miller's Tropic of Cancer.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm kind of reading it, and I'm like, it's like, I don't know, like a precursor to Charles Bukowski. Bukowski obviously was influenced by Henry Miller, I think, or whatever. But I'm like, yeah, I guess I literally I'm reading the prose, and I'm like, I don't care about this. Like, I don't have the time or the headspace to care about why he's writing this. Yeah. So I'm just kind of flipping through it, looking for the dirty bits,
Yeah.
And then I'm like, whatever.
Full disclosure, that's how I feel about Zappa. Like, I just kind of want to get to the stuff that's fun. You know what I mean? Like, I'll fully admit it. I know that you've tried to inundate me with Frank Zappa, Steve, and I love you.
It's not for everybody.
It's not. I don't think it is. So I'm very curious though, because I have a similar deal between like the gangster rap years to really getting into the music that was for me, and the Grateful Dead was later for me, but the rock and roll stuff and the alternative music, like what. So you were listening to a lot of what, NWA, Ice-T, Ice Cube, and then all of a sudden you saw Grateful Dead T-shirts, and that led you down that path.
Well, the whole time, I never got away from that. I don't like to call it classic rock, but, that's what it is.
Right.
I'd be doing my paper route, and I'd finish the Straight Outta Compton tape and take it out and put in, Jimi Hendrix Experience. Or, it was all in there. I wasn't focused on one of those things.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So, yeah.
So did you start seeing shows right away? What did you? Because you've seen the actual Grateful Dead. I have not, and Steve obviously has. But when did you start seeing shows?
So 1995, I was a senior in high school, and April of that year, Grateful Dead fall tour was in the South, and so my buddy came up with this plan. We were going to go to Memphis
spring tour
and see him for 2 nights. Yeah, spring tour.
Yep.
Right.
And so
you were at those pyramid shows.
Yeah. So he bought tickets, and we were all set. We'd had this plan. We're going to go, and then I got in trouble for something. I don't know. I think both of us got in trouble. And so our parents weren't going to let us go.
Yeah.
And so that morning or the night before, I was like, okay, fine, we can't go. So the night before, I packed my bags, took them over to my buddy's house down the street. And then the next morning, got up, acted like I was going to school. And Zach came and picked me up, and we drove to Memphis.
Nice.
I left a note on the back of my door about how I know I'm not supposed to be going and you guys are going to be mad, but I think this is really important for me and my development. And, you know, like a 17-year-old would say.
Totally.
You weren't wrong.
So, yeah, we went down there and saw that, came back and dealt with those consequences. And then I went on summer tour with a couple of friends that had been on tour the summer before. They took me with them. I was 17 years old, and when I saw 9 shows out of all that.
I'm one of my favorite, and I will say probably top 10 shows actually is June 25th, 1995 from RFK Stadium. And it's very obvious that Garcia is not in good shape, but he shows up. Bruce Hornsby's playing in piano, and that show is a motherfucker.
Yeah,
that second set digs in deep. By the time it rolls around to Wharf Rat, it's just heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking and beautiful and awesome.
Yeah,
and it's is it like the best musically thing? No, it's not. But the band sounds awesome, and Garcia's present, and he knows it's obvious that he's not okay. Right. But Bruce Hornsby's there, and so he's got to play, you know, because Hornsby had called him out a couple times, you know, and frankly didn't need the shit. Right. And so anyway, what I'm saying is that I'm really envious that you got to see that and I didn't.
Well, and you know, I was 17 years old and I didn't know enough to know how bad it was.
Right. Yeah.
But I also didn't know enough to know really what the good parts were.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
you were in it for other things.
Well, I mean, I was in it for everything. And
that's fair.
I was just learning all about it. You know?
Sure. Yeah.
And I was learning about a lot of things that summer.
Right. Things they don't teach you in college.
Well, or anywhere else really.
Right.
Except that show.
I was quoting the police there.
What'd you learn?
Oh, good Lord.
You know, I mean,
woo.
Things that we can't talk about. There's things happen there I wouldn't even put on a 4th step.
Right.
Oh, that's juicy.
Yeah. I saw the Dead at RFK Stadium 4 times, and each one of them I could write a novel about. Pretty much, you know. It's really something.
Yeah.
So then you came home, and I have to imagine there was some after being out on the road with those guys for a few weeks, coming back to Lincoln is like, fuck all this.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, because all in all, we were gone for a month. Hung out at this little town on Lake George in upstate New York for a week before tour started.
Wow.
You know, like this whole thing. But yeah, I came back and I was like, yeah. Dad's like, okay, time to get a job. And screw that. I just learned how to live on $4 a day.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And my parents were like, well, okay, but you're not on Shakedown Street anymore. You know, you can't do that.
That's like the harshest words you could ever say.
Nobody's going to give you their burnt grilled cheese for free.
Yeah.
Real life. And I didn't accept that. So I just, you know, bummed around and But I didn't get back into any shows after that because I never had any money. You know, like you got to have a little bit of money and planning and foresight to take off and go on tour or even, you know,
or just to go to a show.
Yeah. Really.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's something that differentiates, I'll say, Deadheads from people who love the Grateful Dead. Is the Deadheads go to shows?
Yeah.
You find a way, you know, like actually step foot through the threshold into the crucible. you know, that's kind of an important distinction. I have a certain, and I'll cop to it. I have a certain amount of disdain. I'll use the word disdain for people who go and hang out in the parking lot with no intention of going to the show.
Yeah.
Especially if they drove for hours to do it. You know, I can see that. I mean, my first show, Grateful Dead experience was going. I mean, we wanted to get in, but it was impossible.
Yeah, I spent plenty of time doing that.
Yeah,
but if you can get in,
right.
That's the point.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yep. That was it. My first time going was I was acutely aware that whatever was going on in the Capitol Center was the reason for everything else happening. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't this afterthought thing. It was like the whole time I was there, I knew I was like, I got to get inside. Like, that's where the energy is. And it all just radiates out from there, you know?
Yeah. And everybody around you has that same thought, that same energy going on.
Yeah. You'd hope.
Well, not everybody, but enough to make it like.
Yeah. But I think that was because I definitely qualify as a touch head. I'll take a step back from that. That wasn't my introduction to the Dead in that scene was not MTV. It was actually my company commander at military school, which is kind of funny. He gave me my first bootlegs in 87, 88 probably. And they were a Greek theater show in 86 and Red Rocks in 82. And he literally handed me the cassettes and said, "You're going to like these someday." That's what he said. He's like, and it was that third eye thing, you know. He's like, it was like a moment. There was the orchestra swelled up behind it, you know. It was like handing the ring, you know, like, you're gonna like these someday, right? Exactly. And so that's, you know, but I mean, I came into it when there was a certain amount of resentment against people that were actual deadheads, against the people that were there just to throw beer bottles and get wasted and act like total jackballs. Yeah. You know, because for 20 plus years, it was this really nice, mellow little scene of lunacy. But, you know, ask anybody that worked concerts or anything overall. I just watched an interview with Jesse fucking Ventura talking about ushering Grateful Dead concerts in the early 70s.
Oh,
he ushered a bunch of concerts, you know.
Wow.
That was like one of his jobs when he was a kid or whatever, young adult, because he's a big dude, you know what I'm saying? And he goes on for 5 minutes about how great it was, comparing to all the other acts that he did, how great the Grateful Dead audience was. Yeah. Because there, you know, I mean, there was some pot smoking and whatever in general lunacy, but it was all good natured and completely benign, you know. And then when I was seeing him, it was literally watching roided out security guards playing whack a hippie, you know. Yeah. I mean, that's what it was, you know, just taking pot shots at hippies jumping over fences. The roided out security guards going, "Come on, you fucking hippies, come on!" So they could literally hit them as hard as they could, you know. And that was a very different dynamic, you know.
Yeah, there was a very dark side to the whole thing for sure.
Well, that was because I went to the Palace in June of '95 in Detroit or outside of Detroit, and I came away from there very dismayed. I had my own problems then, and it was kind of towards the end of my use, and I was a sick pup. But even then, like, I hadn't been for a couple of years, since August of '93, so 2 years had passed, and I remember thinking, like, this is not okay. It was like there was like there's always been a yin to the yang or yang to the yin, you know what I'm saying? That's real, and I was all cognizant of that. But this, I was like, there's not a lot positive happening here.
Yeah,
you know, which was it was sad, is what it was, you know.
And my experience with it was, and I've talked about this before, was quite the opposite. The story was that people weren't. I mean, the people that I actually had direct human contact that went to see the shows in the early 90s, they were folks that I perceived to not give a shit about the music, wanted to wear the t-shirts and sell drugs. Right. I mean, it was like, that doesn't sound like, I mean, because I was really experiencing, you know, very serious alternative music, and they really cared about the music. I was like, Well, this sounds like a fucking sideshow. I'm not interested in that.
Right. Yeah.
So-
Well, I mean, I think the Grateful Dead is a full spectrum experience.
Right.
It's 360 degrees, all the colors, alpha, omega, the whole deal. It's all wrapped in there. Whatever you're looking for, you're going to find.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and we were just talking last week about there's so many different perspectives and ways to come at the Grateful Dead.
Mhm.
And people come at it from everywhere. So it's
everything from Wall Street stockbroker type people to dirt surfers to, LSD casualty crystal worshipers to, high-end yoga teachers to everything to Steve Jobs.
to NFL players.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like
Right.
yeah,
Bill
everybody.
Walton.
Bill Walton.
Yeah, the world's tallest deadhead.
He's
The world's most famous deadhead.
he's
pretty much,
he wins. He's the best fan there is.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yep.
I regret not getting his autograph that day.
When did
So
you
what
see
happened?
Bill Walton?
What happened when you came back to Lincoln? What did you do? You just kind of like
I just became the best alcoholic I could be.
Congrats.
Yeah,
did
and
it.
I succeeded. I haven't
Yeah.
really succeeded at a lot in life, but that was one.
So it wasn't
Wow.
school for you. You went right to work. Is that right?
Oh, I finished getting a high school diploma in a roundabout way because I was supposed to be at summer school that summer.
Well, you were. I mean, you were on tour.
Right.
Well, exactly. So I did that, and then I went to Southeast Community College. I had this idea that I was going to be a chef. So I started in the
Chef Jack.
Yeah, so I started in the
I didn't know
culinary
that.
arts program,
Mm-hmm.
and that lasted 2 weeks. I'm pretty sure that's all it was.
Nice.
And I was like, this is not for me.
You mean the showing up to class and being
Showing up-
accountable and
Yeah, and like doing homework and any of it, like
Boring.
even the lab class that I was taking. The first thing they wanted me to do was stand there and stir a pot of gravy for half an hour. I was like,
no.
no, I'm out of here.
No chef.
I
Rule number 1373: not stirring the gravy for a half hour.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
That's
We'll
bullshit.
we'll stir it a couple times. It's good enough.
So what'd you do? I mean, was it odd jobs for a while, or I mean, what
Yeah.
was?
I
Yeah.
worked at pretty much every restaurant in South Lincoln for 3 days.
Nice.
Yeah. A lot of those jobs I didn't ever get a paycheck from because I was like, I don't even care.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I just bummed around,
Mm-hmm.
and my parents let me keep living with them for some reason.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
until I was 19 when I finally moved out. So it's
Mhm.
not that long.
Right. Right.
And then I moved to Beatrice, which
Nice.
is 40 minutes south of Lincoln, because
Mhm.
one of my best friends got a job managing the Burger King down there,
Mm-hmm.
and he was by himself. And I went for a weekend and stayed, and didn't have a job down there for almost a year, but the liquor store would sell to me, so that was my job.
Perfect.
Hey, how do you know when a deadhead's been at your house?
Yeah,
They're still there.
exactly. That's what happened there. And then shortly after that, when I was 20 years old, my girlfriend, soon to be my first wife, got pregnant, and
That's where we pick up the story of
that's
Jack
where-
and Steve.
That's where that comes in.
Yeah,
How did you guys
man.
move to Lincoln?
I moved to Lincoln before that.
Oh, gotcha.
Went to the Independence Center and back into my parents
yeah.
because Beatrice didn't want me anymore.
Weird.
You
Such a benefit to the community.
Well, I mean, of all the fine, upstanding people in Gage County, I wasn't one of them, I guess.
Right.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
I understand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what was early? I mean, so how old were you when you had your first kiddo?
I was 21 when he was born.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
I
And
cannot.
so, like in my head, I'm like, okay, we're going to be, regular old American family. And,
Mm-hmm.
and like just trying to make that work, trying to shove a round peg into a square hole, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't work out too well.
Well, that's funny that you mentioned that, because I was watching Raising Arizona this morning, and that scene, like where he's working the drill press, and the guys jabbering at him. I'm like, working's a lot like prison,
Uh-huh.
That's what you saying that makes me think of that.
Yeah.
We're really gonna try, and I can totally relate to that, because I tried that. Like I literally came back from California to Lincoln, just really gung ho to do the thing, and I just couldn't. I just couldn't.
Well, I went through a whole thing. I went through a whole thing of like trying to be like the stereotypical blue collar worker. I listened to country music for a while, and I was like trying.
You really tried,
like just because here's these guys that I work with, and they're doing a thing, so maybe I'll try to do that thing.
Right, try to assimilate.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Man, when I moved back to Lincoln from California, I was working at this grocery store, and I'd just come off of a basically 5-year, run basically with the Dead, and this fucking frat, like Cowtown frat boy he was kind of asserting his dominance, over the new guy. He looks at me like out of nowhere, and he's like, country music's the best stuff out there. And I was like, what? I'm like, what? Where the fuck is this? And I just looked at him and said, you've never really been out there, have you? Fuck you, And we didn't really get along too much. But funnily enough, one of his like co-workers at the time, they got along, whatever. This guy named Jason. Hi, Jason. If you're listening, in Kansas City, he was a pretty stereotypical frat boy bro dude, but we ended up over the course of the next couple of years becoming pretty close, just because we both like to drink a lot. Yeah, but he was into like Clapton, you know what I'm saying? That was the guy. White Boy Blues, Clapton, that was his dude. I'll never forget one night we were drinking, and I put on Europe 72 somehow slid into the rotation, and Jason didn't know it. And I found him playing air guitar to Jerry Garcia,
Nice.
And I'm like,
nice.
Gotcha.
And
he had to then acquiesce that maybe, that hippie shit was okay,
Right.
But that was like that dude is kind of on a tangent, but like that dude, he said, well, first of all, one day he came storming. He had graduated from this time. He had his degree in whatever business or something from UNL, and he came storming back in the back room, and he had a piece of broccoli in his hands. And he like winged it across the room. And he goes, I don't have to put up with this. I have a college education. Right. And I'm like, well, yeah, but dude, you're still working here, you know what I'm saying? But his stated goal, and this always killed me, was literally to become a government bureaucrat and to push paper for 20 years and then retire. And to the best of my knowledge, I think he's probably pretty close to that happening, because he went to go work for the Mint, down in Kansas City.
Nice.
Yeah. So, Jason, if you're listening, my hat is off to you. You did it, man.
Yeah.
Congrats.
He had a goal.
Well, right. But I mean, that was like his thing. He's like, I've got my college degree. I want to be a government bureaucrat. I want to put in my 20 years and then retire.
Yeah. And
so he's got to be real. In fact, he's probably past that now, because that would have been like 94, 95.
He's probably on the golf course today.
He's probably on the golf. God damn it, man.
Yeah, man. Could be worse.
So anyway, yeah, that's kind of a tangent, but that's kind of where I was at,
Yeah.
Around that time. Good God.
But, yeah. I mean, saying all of that, it just reminds me that it's really been in the last few years that I've really started to figure out who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, a lot of who I am is who I thought I was 25 years ago, but also it's not at all.
Yeah.
That is I have to imagine that, a family early on has something to do with that. Obviously, you mentioned alcoholism. We all know how that stunts finding who we are, because it sort of clouds everything. But can you talk about that process of what that means? Be like, oh, and only in the last few years have I kind of found out who I am. Like, what does that look like? How does that materialize?
I don't know. I think a lot of it is hanging around with people who accept me, but also who I trust to accept me.
Mm.
You know, my wife, Anna Jane, that we got married last year. You guys, some of my other friends, some of my family members that I finally started letting in. You know, like trusting that people will accept me for whatever. Then I stop trying to fit into their boxes and I start getting into my own box. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No,
it's like the peg, the hole to fit your peg kind of appears.
Yes.
Or you realize that whatever shape you are doesn't need to fit in anything else. It's like the comparison is the biggest thief of joy. And because you've kind of, I mean, I've watched you in the last, I've only known you for a few years, but I've watched you in the last few years sort of state some educational goals and some career goals and you know, like what's that journey like to somebody who didn't want to do school for any more than a week is now like this like dedicated student.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to do anything for any more than a week. So,
right.
Yeah. But yeah, no, what was that? 2 years ago, 2018 that we went to Boulder.
Yeah.
No, that was 2019.
2019.
Oh my God. That was the before times. I had to do the same thing recently because I was looking for the show and I was like, holy shit, that was 2019. It feels like 18 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
But so shortly after that, on my birthday, July 25th, I was working, I was driving the truck and just thinking about, you know, how life's going, all this stuff. And I'm like, I got to get out of this job. I've never had a job that I wanted to do. And just this thought occurred to me, like, what do I want to do? And being a high school history teacher is like the only actual job that I've ever thought that I wanted to have. But it's always been so far away because you have to go to college and that's unattainable for someone like me. And, you know, all these things. And then I was like, maybe I could do that. You know, like how hard could it be? You know, and I called Steve and told him, and he was like, yeah, call Southeast Community College, talk to this guy and ask him about this. And, you know, less than a month later, I was in class.
Funny how that works, huh?
Yeah.
It's weird how taking just even the smallest actions really alter the flow of your life or can.
Yeah.
And it's still going to be at least 6 years before I graduate with a teaching degree.
6 years from now or 6 years from when you started?
Like probably 6 years from now.
Okay.
Because working full time and the other things I have going on, I don't have that much time, but you know, pretty much all my free time is dedicated to taking classes and doing homework.
But is that rewarding for you?
It is. It's hard, and sometimes I get tired of it, but
well, I've been there, man. I've gotten, you know, I got my bachelor's degree with 2 little kids at home working full time, you know, it's tough. 3
or 4 times a week, you know, I get a notification on my phone and it's, oh, your thing has been graded. Look at that. It's an A. So yay, you know, like I get rewards all the time from that. Well, and also just, I just like sitting here at my desk and like working on stuff like that. Like, and continually knowing that I can do more and more than I thought I could.
Why high school history?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too.
I don't know. Those high school history teachers were some of my favorite teachers. And I always thought I liked hanging around with them.
Yeah.
You know, like going into class early and talking to them.
So really what you're saying is you're a nerd.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I'm trying to keep that under cover.
I know.
Don't tell anybody.
Well, I got to tell you, because I asked Gianna, my oldest daughter who just started high school, there's a joke at their school that the how to go, like the history teachers were they're like football coaches that had to teach something.
Well, and that is a joke, but that's also true, and that's one of the big problems with I think that's why our country's in the state it is right now. Because
legit.
The only people that are teaching history and social studies are the football coaches that don't know anything about it, but they have to teach something.
Yeah.
They can't teach
and
math,
don't care about it.
and they don't know how to read, and they don't know anything about science, so they throw them in history class.
Yeah.
I mean, not all the time. There's some great history teachers, but a lot of times that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So you had a history teacher, I'm assuming, that was super influential. If you could, you mentioned like those were the teachers I hung around with, but what high school history teacher sort of really?
Well, and more than high school, even it was like my junior high social studies teachers.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even remember their names.
Sure.
You know, like
I did. Yeah,
I remember like Mr. Larson from elementary school, and he was the social studies guy in 6th grade. And I've just always loved history too, you know, like, and social studies and that stuff. Even like going out to Western Nebraska and doing like Oregon Trail stuff, or going to Buffalo Bill Cody's ranch, and I've always loved Civil War, World War I, World War II, medieval stuff, Viking stuff. Like that's just what I gravitate to when I look for books or TV shows or movies. And,
sounds like you're the guy.
Well, and you know, and the more I learn about what's going on right now, I want to get in trouble teaching history class.
Yeah.
Oh, you will.
You know, like, yeah. I mean, we need somebody to help kids figure out what's going on in this country and in the world.
Yeah.
You're
one of those history teachers that's going to push for the people's history of the United States to be the textbook, right?
Well, yeah, it's right here.
He's got it at his desk. Howard's in. Very well done.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, all this arguing in school boards and stuff about critical race theory, and nobody has any idea what that actually is.
No.
You know, and, you know, somebody's got to tell kids the truth.
Or just teach them history through a lens that is honest. And that's the thing that's so bothersome about that critical race theory hot button thing, is that a bunch of like right-wing white supremacist strategists said, this is the thing we're going to say is bad, so that it's the dog whistle for everybody that follows us like sycophants. When if you were to really ask those folks about teaching actual history, they wouldn't have an issue with that, but then they're told to be scared of, you know, it's just like complete white supremacist dog whistling bullshit.
Yeah, we have to exactly.
Yeah,
we need to ban this literature, and we need to make a rule that these people can't learn to read. And
right,
I mean, it goes way back to
So I thought that like this was the land of the free with the literature banning. Is that it's those evil public schools. That's what it is.
Well, that's what the songs are about.
Sure. Yeah. Marketing slogan.
Freedom's for the national anthem and the songs. It's not for actual education.
Well, the English classes that I'm taking, I'm really seeing how you can teach someone to think for themselves, you know, by being critical of what you read and what to look for and stuff like that. So that's a big part of it too.
Yeah.
How to figure out stuff on your own. Take all this information, and focus it.
Well, that's the fear. I mean, I'm not disparaging sort of professional schools or trade schools at all, because I think there's a real benefit to that for our society and our culture. Absolutely. But the war on education or intellectualism is really scary, because it's like they've equated the idea of liberal arts with something else, right? And it's socialism, which don't get me started.
It's just capitalism without clowns.
Yeah.
Well, Jack, we're kind of bumping up against our hour plus. Joel, do you want to ask the questions?
So, Jack, now it comes to the question hour. You know the drill. okay, so we know I'm going to throw you a bit of a curve. We know you love the Grateful Dead, and we know that you and Steve can talk ad nauseum about the great Grateful Dead.
Yes.
Yes.
But aside from the Grateful Dead or the Jerry Garcia band, I see or Rat Dog. What are you listening to? Like what are you listening to that may surprise Steve and I?
Well, there's this pretty new band that I'm getting into lately. Dead and Company.
Oh my god.
No. Okay. So for real. Okay. Well, over the last summer, we just got through Space Boy Summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Space Boy Summer.
Last spring, I decided this is going to be Space Boy Summer, and so I started trying to find instrumental stuff without lyrics that's just spacey and weird.
Mm-hmm.
I found this band called the Oresund Space Collective.
Ooh.
They're from Norway, Sweden, right up around there, and it's a collective. There's nobody that's actually been in the band the whole time. They just take players.
That's cool.
And it's live jam, guitar driven space music.
Nice.
And it gets a little bit electronic sometimes and different stuff like that. But like that's my background music for when I'm sitting up here doing homework or my meditation music sometimes. You know, so that's pretty cool. There's a kid named Hayden Pedigo, this kid from Texas that plays a 12-string guitar that I got into a few weeks ago. I heard him on NPR or something. And that's all just like instrumental is kind of what I go for these days. Stuff I can just jam out to. Yeah.
Something you can let play, let take you away, or stuff to help you focus on writing a paper.
Yeah. I can either pay attention to it or not.
Yeah.
And from both those angles, it's got its own thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
What are you reading?
The 4 different books that I'm not going to finish probably. Let's see. I'm listening to Native Son, Richard Wright, which was one of my favorite books. I read it when I was a kid and I read it again, not, somewhere in between, but I'm listening to it now. It's not as good on audiobook, because it's not it's not the way I would say it.
Yeah.
But it's awesome. I'm reading a book about the Civil War, Gods and Generals. Have you heard of Killer Angels?
Yes.
Okay, so that guy's son wrote this book, which is sort of a prequel to that book. But it's
I have a friend who is writing a Civil War era or modern and historical Civil War novel who told me all about that interesting story about that particular book and the son taking it over and all of that. Yeah, that ethos.
It's really good. It's sort of, it's fiction, but it's based on fact.
Right.
And so it's what these guys are saying to each other and stuff.
Right.
It's really interesting.
Cool.
And what else? I'm still trying to get through Don Quixote.
Oh.
I started that last spring sometime, and every once in a while I'll look it up, I'll read 10 pages and put it back down.
Just listen to Man of La Mancha and be done with it. You'll be fine.
But I named my dog after it. My dog is Sancho.
Yes.
Sancho Panza, because he's in my misguided delusional adventures, he's my faithful squire.
He believes
and eater of couches, apparently.
And eater of couches, and yeah.
That's why man's best friend is our best friend, because they just believe all of our bullshit. They don't care. As long as if we believe it, they believe it, right?
Yeah, as long as I have some treats and I know how to open the back door.
You're the guy.
Yeah.
You're a god.
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Well, Jack, thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah, no, this was cool. I was excited about doing it.
Yeah, you're welcome back anytime. If you really do have to air some grievances at any point, feel free to join us and air those out.
I'll start really making a list, and for episode 102.
Yeah, there you go. Jack comes
here.
back to nitpick.
Every 50 episodes or so, we'll get together.
Yeah,
Sure, that works. Check in.
Jack's got a bone to pick with you people.
Right.
Yeah, I got a problem with you people.
Excellent. Wouldn't have it
I'm
any
always
other way.
excited about hanging out with you guys, whether it's on
Yeah.
the computer or in real life. So
Yeah,
Same here, man.
cool.
love you, Jack.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, dude.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Happy
it.
Halloween.
Happy
Oh yeah,
Halloween.
spooky,
All
Trying to
spooky
get at
season.
it.
All right, later.
Too late to feel sorrow, too late to feel pain. He's just an old hobo and he's lost out in the rain. He never caused trouble, so don't have no fear. He's just an old hobo and he'll soon be far away from here. He used to be a gambling man, just like you. Until he sank so low, there was nothing that no one could do. He used to be a gambling man, just like you. Until he sank so low, there was nothing that no one could do. Oh, don't make him ask you. Oh, don't make him beg. He was a war hero, and that's how he hurt his leg. He killed 30 Indians with one cannonball. Now he's just an old hobo, asleep out in the hall. He used to be a gambling man, just like you. Until he sank so low, there was nothing that no one could do. He used to be a gambling man, just like you. Until he sank so low, there was nothing that no one could do. A wife and 5 children who live in LA. They miss their dear daddy, who's gone so far away. They still have his picture, is hung on the wall. He's just an old hobo, asleep out in the hall. He used to be a gambling man, just like you. Until he sank so low, there was nothing that no one could do. He used to be a gambling man, just like you. Until he sank so low, there was nothing that no one could do.
Don't forget, toot your hooter.